Hi everyone, my name is Shauna in case you don't know, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be doing my August reading wrap up. I am depressed right now and struggling and spiraling, but it is over a week into the month of like September, so I gotta do my August reading wrap up. I don't know why this is the only place I feel comfortable like talking about my mental health, considering like on here is where I've gotten like so much hate compared to all the other social media platforms, but I don't know, maybe it's just because I've always been honest and authentic on here. The first book that I read in the month of August was a manga, and I read this one on the Shonen Jump app. I read several manga on the Shonen Jump app this month because when I need like shorter books, like when I'm behind on my like reading goal, I'll read shorter books to like get caught up, and I don't really have many like physical copies of shorter books right now, so I'm just doing the Shonen Jump app, to get my number up when I'm behind. So this one that I read is Moriarty the Patriot. This was volume 1. The author is Ryozuki Takechi. I probably butchered the author's name. But basically, Moriarty the Patriot is like a Sherlock retelling, in case you can't tell. Obviously, it's named after Moriarty. The series focuses on Moriarty, and Moriarty is still the villain, but he's also the hero. Like, there is like good behind the actions that he's doing. It's a really like interesting story, and it's an interesting take on Moriarty the Patriot. I think it's really well done. I think it brings a lot of originality to Sherlock retellings. I also really like the characters. My favorite is probably Albert and Moran, and yeah, I liked this one. I thought it was pretty solid. There is a bit of info dumping in this first one, which does weigh down the story a little bit, so I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. However, I read more of this series later this month, so more thoughts on this series to come. Then I did a reread, and I reread Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. This was my 6th time reading this book. It used to be my top favorite, but it does have some slow moments, so I do find that I like Prisoner of Azkaban better. However, Goblet of Fire is really solid. I love, love, love all of the characters that are in this one, and I love the Triwizard Tournament. I love competitions, especially when they turn deadly. There's this one joke that always like makes me crack up in here, and it's like when the French food is at the Great Hall and it's like being added to the table, and Ron goes, "What's that?" and Hermione names the soup. It's a French soup. I think it's like booblies or something. I don't know. I know nothing about French, not to say French things, but anyway, she says it and he goes, "Bless you." And it's so random, but like I'll randomly think of it and just start cracking up. Like it's one of my favorite like niche moments that no one else is really aware of. So yeah, I gave this one 5 stars, of course, because I love the Harry Potter series and all of them are 5-star reads for me. And then I read Moriarty the Patriot Volume 2, and this one was even better than Volume 1 because there isn't really info dumping in there. I love seeing Sherlock in here and seeing how he adds to the story, and a lot of the interactions between the characters just made me so happy, especially Albert and Moran and their interactions, and I also really liked Mrs. Hudson's interactions with John. So I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. I low-key sort of want to cosplay Albert or Moran, but I have this thing where like I try and finish a series in its entirety before I cosplay from it, so I'm probably gonna watch the anime, and then after I finish the anime I might cosplay from it, but I'm not gonna cosplay from it after just reading a few volumes of the manga. Like I really want to see the characters on the screen before I cosplay them. I mean, I did my first book cosplay recently. I did Rune from Crescent City, and I want to do more Crescent City cosplays, but like it's so hard for me to like visualize a character and how they look in my brain after reading them. And I mean, there is the visual aspect to manga, but also like the color aspect, is a thing too. Like I need to know the colors, and I need to like get the colors envisioned correctly, because I was visioning the colors of these like characters' hairs and stuff, and then I looked at pictures from the anime and I'm like, they're not quite what I imagined. So I really want to watch the anime first before I cosplay from this series, but it's definitely something I'm interested in doing, especially since one of my closest friends cosplays from Moriarty the Patriot. And then I read Bungo Stray Dogs Volume 1. The story is by Kafka Asagiri. This one is so hyped, and I wanted to love it, especially because like so many people have cosplayed from it. So I wanted to love it. I've heard good things about him, Desai. I don't know if I said his name right, but I've heard really good things about him. I really wanted to love this one. And it's basically about this main character right here who ends up rescuing Desai from a suicide attempt. And it turns out that he's part of a detective agency. In this detective agency, they all have supernatural powers. And a lot of them are sort of based on like literary authors. The concept sounds so cool and so good, But I could not get into this one no matter how hard I tried. I couldn't connect to any of the characters. I found them all to be extremely unlikable. There is a lot of tropes in here that I don't really like that are very common in manga, but some of them felt a bit more extreme than other manga and anime series that I've engaged with. Specifically, like there is a couple, well, not a couple, there's siblings in here that have suspicious relationships with each other, and it's a bit more groping as opposed to just like comments, so it's a bit more extreme than like other manga and anime that I've read, and I'm not a fan of that. That part of anime always really gives me the ick, and it was like one of the worst ones I've read in here. Not as bad as like Vampire Night where the freaking plot twist is like incest, but still not great. But my biggest issue with this volume is Dazai and his suicide attempts and how they are treated as a joke. Suicide is a very serious subject. I am someone who has struggled with suicidal ideation in the past, and I am someone who has lost people that I have cared deeply about because of suicide. And so I am very concerned when I see media that doesn't handle suicide correctly. It shouldn't be put in there as a joke. It shouldn't be put in there as a shock effect. It shouldn't be glorified or romanticized. And here it just deals with it as a joke. I actually filmed a whole rant video where I was talking about mental health representation in media. I'll link that down in the description below. But I did mention Bungo. I just don't think that this manga handled suicide very well. I may still give the anime a chance, but I will most likely not be continuing with the manga unless somehow I get like gifted the second one, or unless like I end up liking the anime if the anime changes things and is better than the manga. But from talking with one of my friends who has engaged with more of the series than I have, it doesn't really get better in regards to the suicide stuff and how it's handled. And then I read Moriarty the Patriot Volume 3. I really enjoyed Volume 3. I really liked the Hunting of Baskervilles arc. It was very morbid and dark, but I really liked it. I found that it was fun to read about, and I found that it was fascinating. It was like one of those things where it's like it's so disturbing that you're so captivated and can't stop reading it. And the ending of the arc was like so well done and perfect, so I ended up giving Moriarty the Patriot Volume 3 4 out of 5 stars. And then I read Moriarty the Patriot Volume 4. Volume 4 gives a backstory to Moran, and he is this guy who like has a history with war, and I love him so much as a character, so I did enjoy this volume. However, there was a lot of info dumping when it comes to the war stuff, and I'm also not the biggest fan of war stuff and everything that that entails, and so I didn't enjoy this one as much as the previous two. However, I still did mostly enjoy it, so I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. And then the final book that I read in August, I would have read more, but the last week of August I was in Seattle and I was hanging out with friends, and I just was like too tired after hanging out with my friends all day that I didn't really have time to read. Also, like when there's cons going on, because I went to a con up there, I don't really have time to read, so I didn't really end up reading for the last week of August and for basically the first week of September, because I got back from Seattle on the 2nd, maybe, no, yeah, wait, I got back from Seattle on the 2nd or the 3rd. One of those days, and then I had a con start on like literally the Friday after I got back, which was like the 5th or something. So I had like 2 days of rest where I could like read, and then I got another con. So I wasn't really reading that much in the end of August and start of September. The con that I did at the start of September, Rose City Comic Con, I hosted a panel. I have done 3 panels now at cons, and I've run 3 meetups, and I really like doing interactive panels, and so the one that I did was an 18+ panel called Let's Get Flashy with Tengen and His Wives, and I was Tengen, and it was pretty fun. We got the last times out of the day, so we didn't get like too many people to show up, but we still did have a fun bunch. But I wanted to like refresh myself on some stuff related to Demon Slayer for the panel, that way I could like be super in character. And so I had 2 Demon Slayer books that I hadn't read yet. I have Corpse Records, which is the one I read, and then I also have one of the light novels. I don't remember which one. I know I have an additional light novel or 2 I need to buy, but I have one light novel that I'm staring at and I can't see the name, but I think it's Sonomy. I think it says. Anyway, so I read Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba Corpse Records, and this is by Koyoharu Gotage, and this was the final book that I read in the month of August. This is a guidebook to the main series. So, of course, like, don't read the guidebook until you've read the main series because there's spoilers in here. I'm going to sort of go through what's in here so you get a general idea of what's in here. There's a very thorough recap of the series at the start. And then we have a character guide, and a lot of this is a character guide. The character guides are pretty thorough. It gives a lot of background information. The only thing is a lot of the character guides go into a lot of like the breathing styles and all the different forms, which I'm not the biggest fan of, so I sort of skimmed those a bit. I also thought it was interesting that there was sections about like how each Hashira related to each other, like how, for example, Tengen views like Shinobu and Mitsuri and stuff. And then there's some bonus manga. Some of the bonus manga you've seen, especially if you've read Kimetsu Academy. There's also like a recap description thing, which I think was useful about like the rebirth, regeneration, descendants thing that happens. I don't want to go into too much spoilers about that. So yeah, that's basically what's in here. Okay, so I thought that this was really thorough and gives a lot of good information. My favorite parts about here were the bonus manga stories. I loved getting to read more about Nakame and her backstory because she's a demon who we don't get to see enough in the main series and hear about. I also really liked the fun facts about Suma. There was a big problem with this manga. I don't think that these issues would have been in the Japanese version of this manga the way that it was originally published. There was just nonstop errors, and the errors weren't like, this is just factually incorrect. It was like the information was in the wrong spots, or the translator got the characters' names confused for a bit. Like there's a whole section in here where it's talking about like the fight with Doma, and it keeps saying Kanai when it's meaning to refer to Shinobu. And I'm like, that's not correct. And I think if someone was like translating this into English and didn't know a ton about Demon Slayer, or knew just a tiny bit but got the characters confused all the time, I understand how that error could have been made, but also like how was that published? And then there were several sections where the information would be like, here's the information about like flame breathing, and then it would give the wrong information because it would repeat information that you would see elsewhere in the manga. I'm gonna try and like find an example really quick in here and read it off to you to show you what I mean. I'm doing the flame breathing one because this is the one I remember off the top of my head without having to research. So it says, the secret to flame breathing: dual sword wielding, a sharp sense of touch, flexible joints, and astounding combat instincts are indispensable. It's doubtful anyone but corpse member Hashabira, the style's originator, can even master it. That is information about beast breathing that we already got in the information about Inosuke that was like previous. And so it was like, I don't know, it was like it was translated and they put all the pieces translated in the manuscript, and then they went to go put it on the like actual copy of the book and they just copied and pasted. But when they copied and pasted, they sometimes pasted the wrong information into different sections. And it's sad because like there's stuff in here that I legitimately like wanted to know, but because that would happen where it would be like they copy and pasted the wrong information in that section, I wouldn't get the information that I wanted to know. I wish I knew Japanese so that I could read the Japanese version of this and see the information that I missed because of it, but it's just weird that like somehow this was published with this many errors, and literally it was just like copy and pasting errors, it seemed like, because it seems like a lot of it was translated well, it just, the stuff was in the wrong sections and it was really frustrating. But I still mostly enjoyed this one. I think it was like a great refresher, and I think that if you want additional information about certain parts of the story and the characters, then this Corpse Records will definitely provide that. I want to read the light novel soon so that I can finish reading everything in the Demon Slayer universe, but I'm very happy with this one. Demon Slayer is like one of the few things that legitimately makes me like super happy recently. So yeah, I want to go read more Demon Slayer stuff. Maybe I should just reread the whole series. I don't know. I've been having troubles like finding joy in things recently, and so like when I find something that like really captures my attention and brings me joy, I really like obsess over it, which is sort of Demon Slayer right now. So basically those were the 7 books that I read in the month of August. I hope all of you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to me if you haven't already. I have a ton of other bookish content up on my page if you want to see more bookish content, if you want to see any of my cosplays, like I was talking about Demon Slayer and I cosplay from Demon Slayer. I have a lot of that up on my shorts. I'll see all of you in my next video. Until next time, everyone, goodbye.